You don't survive 30 winters in the backwoods without learning how to listen. And I'm not talking about hearing a squirrel chirping, a twig snapping. I mean listening to the wind, to the rhythms of nature, to the subtle way the earth tells you when something's not right. That August morning in 2025, the air was unusually still. I remember the way the sunrise tried to peek through thick pine canopy, casting long, gold fingers across my boots. I was 5 days into a solo elk hunt in a region I've tracked game through 4 decades. Rugged land, remote, the kind of wilderness that doesn't forgive arrogance. My gear was solid, my rifle zeroed, rations calculated to the ounce. I wasn't out there for fun, I was out there because the forest has always been the one place I felt in control. But this time, the forest had other plans. At first it was the silence, not the peaceful kind you appreciate with morning coffee. This was a suffocating, unnatural quiet. Birds gone. No squirrels bouncing through branches, even the usual chorus of insects dead, like someone had hit mute on the whole damn world. That's when my heart started pounding in a way I hadn't felt since Afghanistan. I stopped, kneeling, listening, and then I saw the tracks. They weren't bear. I know bear. These were bigger, deeper, padded like a canine's. But the gait was wrong, too long, too deliberate. Whatever made those wasn't moving to feed it, was moving with purpose. That was the first time the hairs on my arms stood up. I crouched low, brushing my fingers across the dirt. 4 toes, no claw drag, nearly 6 inches wide, with a stride that suggested something over 7 feet tall, if upright. I snapped a photo on my field cam, for evidence, for sanity, because, in the back of my mind I already knew this wasn't normal, and I didn't want to be the only one who saw it. I kept moving, east ridge, higher ground. That's when I noticed my trail cameras had been tripped, but none of them recorded anything. Batteries full, motion sensors active, timestamps intact, but the images were just black, as if the night itself had walked by. By late afternoon, I was setting up camp at base 2, an old ranger cabin I'd converted years back into a dry shelter. Nothing fancy, just a steel-reinforced door and a cot. I pulled out my Mr. E, lit the portable burner, and that's when the smell hit me. Blood, old, thick, and coppery close. I rose slow, sweeping the clearing with my scope. Nothing, but I wasn't alone. I knew it. You don't survive in these woods if you don't trust your instincts, and mine were screaming that I'd become part of the food chain. The sun dipped, temperature dropped, and as I bolted the door, something deep in my gut told me not even steel could keep this thing out, because out here, if you hear silence, you're already being watched. You don't expect to see something that shouldn't exist. Even after all I'd felt after the silence, the tracks, the blackout trail cam size still wasn't ready. That night, the air was thick as molasses. No wind, no breath from the trees. I was in the ranger cabin, lamp dimmed low, my rifle cleaned and leaning by the cot. I'd set a perimeter, motion alarms, tripwire with flares, even sent markers to keep the local wildlife cautious. But this wasn't wildlife. At 2:37 a.m. the wind came back, not a breeze, not a gust, a single inhale. Long, deep, wet. It shivered through the wood panels. Not like something outside breathing in, but like the whole damn forest had drawn breath and was holding it. I froze, every nerve lit up like a war drum. I grabbed my rifle and crept toward the peephole I'd drilled years ago, just in case. That's when I saw it, a silhouette, hulking, upright, just beyond the tree line. Its back was to me, but I could tell by the way it moved, slow and deliberate, sniffing the air like a shark scenting blood. Its head craned left, then right, now twitching. Ears pricked. It wasn't searching, it was confirming. It already knew where I was. I don't know what part of my brain failed. First, the rational part that screamed bear, or the instinctual part that whispered no. Too tall, too smart, but my body locked. It turned, and for a flicker of a moment, our eyes met. God help me, those weren't animal eyes. Amber, intelligent, angry, and hungry. It stepped into the moonlight. I wish I could tell you it was a costume. I wish I could say it looked fake, but it didn't. The creature was massive, 7.5 feet at least, with muscle that rippled like wet ropes beneath coarse, matted fur. The snout was elongated, canine but wrong, almost skeletal near the nostrils, as if built to rip through armor. Long arms, longer claws, hands like a man's, but twisted into something unholy. Its legs bent backward, like a wolf mid-sprint, except it was standing still, and it was looking at me like I was dinner left too long on the table. I ducked, heart jackhammering. Every logical part of me said, stay down, stay quiet. But that thing wasn't following logic, it was following me. The alarms didn't trip, the flares didn't pop, it hadn't triggered anything. It didn't need to. I heard the first scratch on the cabin wall like a whisper made of razors. Slow, deliberate, the way a killer lets you know they're not in a rush. I backed toward the fireplace, pulling the emergency flare gun. One shot, one chance. Then silence again. I swear the cabin breathed. And then crack, a claw punched straight through the reinforced door. Splinters flew. I fired the flare straight into that godless eye. It howled. Not a wolf's howl, not a man's scream. Something between. Something wrong, the sound of something. Too old to care about your prayers, too real to be fiction. That moment, that sound. That was the moment I stopped being a hunter and started running like prey. You don't think, you don't plan, you react. That's what 30 years of tracking apex predators burns into your marrow. And when that door exploded inward like paper in a storm, I wasn't a man, I was a muscle memory. The flare had only slowed it, maybe singed its eye, pissed it off more than it hurt, but that gave me 10 seconds, maybe less. I dove through the rear hatch, an old emergency crawl space I'd carved years back with a hatchet and stubborn paranoia. Hit the dirt, rolled hard, pain flashed through. My shoulder dislocated maybe, didn't matter. I was up and sprinting, blood in my mouth, rifle slung, headlamp off, no light, just dark. I didn't need light. I knew these woods, but so did it. Behind me, something howled closer than it should have been, the kind of sound that folds the forest in on itself. Trees held their breath. My boots hammered dirt and moss as I raced past a downed oak, heart slamming with each step. I didn't dare run straight. Zigzag, confuse it. If it was smart and it was, I couldn't give it a pattern to track. Then it hit Metha Ravine, quarter-mile north, steep edge. Shallow stream below. It was the only thing nearby with real depth and angle. I veered toward it, lungs on fire, praying the beast was arrogant enough to follow me blind. Branches slapped my face, blood ran from somewhere above my brow, but I kept going. Snap, crack, thud, to land it behind me. I didn't look. I could feel it, the way you feel a charging freight train, not with ears, but through your bones. Its breath was on my neck. I could smell it, trodden, iron-rich and hot. 10 steps, 9 eater claws slashed the bark inches from my head. I dropped, rolled downhill, and suddenly gone, airborne. The world inverted as I plummeted into the ravine. My body hit rocks, cold water, mud. I heard something snap. May have been a rib, may have been the universe telling me this is where you die. I didn't die, not yet, but I wasn't alone. I crawled to a boulder and pulled my sidearm. 44 Magnum. Heavy, loud, my last resort. My vision swam. Every breath was a razor blade. But I held still, chest deep in stream water, mud coating me like camouflage. Then it appeared on the ridge above me, snarling, blood from its burned eye, staring. It paced, sniffed, trying to pinpoint me, and then it leapt. I fired 3 times. The first 2 missed. Maybe they grazed, but the third hit. It howled, midair, twisted in pain, and crashed into the ravine wall, sliding down in a heap of fur and fury. I scrambled backward, coughing blood, ready to put another round in its skull, but when I looked again, it was gone. No blood trail, no body, no footsteps, nothing. Just the sound of water and my own pulse drumming through the bruised cage of my ribs. Was it playing dead? Was it still watching? Was it even real? I sat there for hours, frozen, staring at where it had been, sidearm locked in a trembling grip, waiting. And the whole time, the forest never made a sound, not even the wind dared breathe. Dawn came like an apology. Weak orange light filtered through the treetops as I dragged my broken body from the ravine, every muscle screaming with betrayal. My right arm was useless, probably dislocated from the fall. Left leg, torn up bad, treaded by a rock or a clay, couldn't tell. Everything else, pain raw, laced through every heartbeat like punishment for surviving. But I had survived. That alone should have been enough. It wasn't. I limped through the forest with nothing but the clothes on my back and the 44 in my hand. No pack, no food, no coms. The sat phone had shattered in the fall. I was a day's trek from my truck. Maybe in every step felt like my bones were grinding against sandpaper. But worse than the pain was the not knowing. Was it still out there, watching me limp through the trees, laughing in that inhuman way? Was it toying with me, letting me go just to see if I'd crack? I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting it to emerge from the fog, but nothing did. Not a bird, not a branch. Just that unnatural, hanging silence, a kind that makes your skin crawl and your instincts scream run, even when your legs can't. Somehow I made it to the ridge by midday, collapsed behind a fallen pine, and that's where I stayed, until nightfall, until the stars came out and I could think. And when I did, I questioned everything. Had I imagined it? Was it blood loss? Shock? Had I built a monster out of shadow and instinct? No, I knew what I saw, what I felt. That wasn't hallucination. That wasn't fear playing dress up. That thing had weight, heat, eyes that thought. I replayed every moment, the flare, the claw through the door, the howl, the amber stare, the intelligence behind it. I've tracked animals my whole life, apex predators, mountain lions, grizzlies, wolves. I know the difference between instinct and intention. And whatever that was, it wasn't hunting for food, it was hunting me. By the time I reached my truck the next day, I was delirious from infection and dehydration. Collapsed on the gravel, bloodied and howling like the damned, until a pair of hikers stumbled across me and called it in. The medics thought I'd been attacked by a bear, maybe a big cat. I didn't argue. I let them believe it. Let them stitch the wounds and shake their heads at the claw marks they couldn't explain. I played the part of the lucky hunter, but I saw the way they looked at me, the doubt, the sideways glances, like maybe I'd gone crazy out there in the trees. And maybe I had, because every night since, I still hear it, that breath in the trees, that silence before the scream, that burning amber eye watching me from the edge of the world. I lock every door now, I never sleep near windows, and I haven't stepped into a forest since. Not because I'm afraid of dying, but because I'm afraid of surviving again, because now I know what's out there, and worse, I know it remembers me, too. You don't walk away from something like that unchanged. Your bones heal, the scars fade, but your mind, that's a whole different battlefield. It's been weeks since I crawled out of that canyon, and I still don't sleep right. I still wake up reaching for the pistol under my pillow, sweating, listening, because now I know the silence isn't empty. It's waiting. I've rewritten every rule I ever followed in the wild, every safe zone I used to believe in. Gone. The deep ridges I once called home. Abandoned my cabin, burned it, couldn't bear the thought of that door again. The claw marks, the smell. Nowadays, I move differently. I carry silver, don't know if it works, but folklore is folklore for a reason. I pack UV flares, magnesium, high-pitched, sonic alarms I built myself. Overkill, maybe, but that's what you do when you've looked into the eyes of something older than logic. I used to laugh at cryptid shows, thought those backwoods legends were just ghost stories for the gullible. Not anymore. Now I watch everything. I read the old reports. I scan hunter forums. And here's the part that keeps me up at night. I'm not the only one. There are others. Not many. Scattered voices, discredited, mocked, but every so often I find a story hidden in a thread, buried in a report that sounds just like mine, tracks that go too deep, eyes that don't reflect light, silence before the storm, and always the same phrase. I thought it was a bear. Until it wasn't. I've started mapping them, trying to find a pattern, migration, maybe territory shifts. I know how predators move, and this one, it's methodical. It doesn't leave messes, it doesn't make mistakes, it chooses, and that's what haunts me. Why me? Why not the hikers? Why not a family camper or some greenhorn city kid trying to cosplay survivalist? Why a veteran hunter, armed, prepared, alert? That's the question I keep circling back to, and the only answer I can live with, the only one that fits his test. It was testing me, not just my strength, my will, my tactics, like it wanted to learn, like it enjoyed it, like I wasn't prey, I was a warm-up. And if that's true, what's it warming up for? I've spoken to no one about this, no podcasts, no channels, no interviews. I haven't even told my son. He's a tracker now, too young, full of that same pride I once had, thinks there's nothing out there he can't kill. God, I hope he never learns he's wrong, and that's why I'm telling you this. Because this story isn't for fame, it's not for views or clicks or clout. It's a warning. There's something ancient in our forests, something that hunts for reasons we don't understand, and if you're out there alone, if you ever feel that sudden hush fall around you like a suffocating blanket, if your instincts start screaming and you can't explain why, you run. You don't look back. You don't try to rationalize it, because if it sees you hesitate, it won't be a test, it'll be the final hunt, and this time, there won't be a story left to tell. I used to think I knew the woods, knew the rules, knew every predator that walked, crawled, or slithered through the brush, but that night rewrote everything. It wasn't just the claws, or the howl, or the impossible strength. It was the design. This creature, this werewolf, wasn't just nature gone wrong. It was something crafted, something older, built to hunt, but not to feed, built to punish. Every movement had intent, every decision, restraint. It could have ended me in seconds, but it didn't. Why? I started digging after I got back, quietly, through folklore databases, native oral histories, fringe anthropology logs, hell, even military archives. I pulled every string, every whispered thread, and buried in an old 19th century ranger ledger, I found a phrase etched into the margins of a water-damaged journal. No author, no date, just 5 words scratched beside a blood-stained fingerprint. Only prey hears the silence. That whisper phrase has been stuck in my head ever since. I've heard versions of it across continents. Among the Cree, there's a story of a shadow beast that marks warriors it deems worthy of pursuit, only appearing when the forest no longer sings. In Norse lore, it's called Vagmorks, the wolf's mark, a curse passed from beast to hunter, not to kill, but to change. And here's the gut twist: every tale, those who survive an encounter with it, they don't stay the same. Some vanish, others start walking at night, talking to the trees, whispering at the moon, and some, they become it, not bitten, not cursed in the Hollywood sense, chosen. Because this isn't just a beast, it's an invitation, a passing of the fang. The night it stalked me when it could have ended me, and didn't. I think it marked me. Not for death, for succession, because maybe these things aren't born, maybe they're recruited, and maybe surviving isn't victory, maybe it's phase 1. Since that night I've felt it. My senses sharper, my patience thinner, my instincts louder than ever. I've smelled blood on the wind that wasn't there, heard whispers in the pine needles. I don't know how long I've got, days, years, but something's waking up inside me, something ancient, and if that silence falls again, I won't be afraid, I'll be ready, because I remember, only prey hears the silence, and I'm not prey anymore. They say knowledge is power, but out here in the wild, where myths breathe and monsters walk, knowledge is weight, and I carry that weight every damn day. I don't hunt anymore, not in the way I used to. The rifle stays locked away, the scent kits are sealed. My boots haven't touched forest floor since that night. Not because I'm scared, not anymore, it's because I don't trust myself. The line between man and monster used to be a cliff, clear, solid. Now it's a foggy trail, in the dark, and sometimes, I swear I feel my eyes glowing back at the mirror. Just for a flicker, just enough to wonder. I'm telling you this not to scare you, but to prepare you, because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: the wild still belongs to the old things. We just hike through it, blind and arrogant. So here's my advice, burn it into your memory. If the forest ever goes silent, if your compass starts spinning, if the trees bend inward like they're listening to something you can't hear, don't look, don't breathe, don't hesitate, because that's when the world shifts. That's when you're no longer the hunter, that's when you're invited, and once the silence takes root, there's no going back. Now if you're still watching, if you've stuck through every word of this madness, maybe you're like me, a skeptic, a tracker, a truth hunter, or maybe you've already heard the silence yourself. Either way, you need to know, this wasn't a story, this was a confession, and the next time you're deep in the wild, tent zipped, fire crackling, heart pounding, listen, because the forest is watching, and it remembers you. If this tale chilled your bones, if you felt that whisper crawl down your spine, don't look away. Subscribe to Whispering Narratives for more true encounters, cinematic horrors, and cursed confessions from the edge of belief. Drop a comment. What would you do if the werewolf marked you next? And if you've heard the silence, tell us. You're not alone, not anymore. And for those who hunger for more, step deeper into the shadows with our ultimate werewolf horror playlist, linked in the description below. In the world of horror, the scariest things happen when you least expect them. And trust me, you don't want to be left in the dark. Welcome to the darkness.